stand before you and your evening break, so I'm sure you won't mind us taking much of your time, but we'll do and make sure before midnight we leave the stage. Thank you for waking up. In a couple of years, the government of Tanzania has been committed in driving national connectivity, but also its neighbors. And the intention is to make sure not only Tanzania, but its neighbors are connected. The panel is going to dwell on what digital improvement have been realized in Tanzania, but as well as in the neighboring countries. And as they were introduced, my panel is Mr. Engineer Leo Magomba, who is Director of ICT Infrastructure in the Ministry, United Republic of Tanzania, but we were supposed to have Shukuru Awad, but okay, now it has been replaced. TIGO as well, we have Madam there from TIGO. Frank Chacha Maginga, you're here? Yes, from Manager Telecom Technologies and Research. And I'll begin by the only lady in the panel. You know, I've always believed in what is called a positive discrimination. I'm sure you know about that positive discrimination, that you make people have places just because of who they are, and only and again that because of what they can do. So I will start with my sister there. How has connectivity of Tanzania evolved over the years in relation to TIGO as a company?
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. You are too serious. Good evening. You know, sitting here in front, it's kind of scary, so please give me a charming face. Yeah, so as it has been stated, my name is Yvonne Francis Mashuda, and I'm the Regional and International Wholesale Manager from TIGO under TIGO Business Segment. I'm here to represent Mr. John C. Selima, who is the Chief Business Officer for TIGO. Coming back to the question, I will answer this in a relation to what I'm dealing with right now. As I've stated, I'm dealing with regional connectivity. And under TIGO, probably I should start with introducing how TIGO is working towards the society. We all know that TIGO is dealing with voice and fixed business with 16 million subscribers, and of course with penetration of 53% in mobile financial services. TIGO has invested massively under Action Group, over $500 million USD, by the way, in technology to make sure we grow and improve in terms of connectivity. But how can I narrate this further? We all know that we do have 3 cables here in Tanzania. The 2 major cables are Seacom and Easy, but of course Seychelles cable, which is also under TIGO. So for TIGO being a biggest contributor in connectivity, we have invested in 2 biggest cables here in Tanzania. We have a landing station for Easy, whereby we are controlling the gateway for the submarine capacity coming through Tanzania. But we are also taking control for Seas cable, which is also a cable that brings in capacity all the way from Seychelles to Tanzania. But apart from that, TIGO is highly investing in technology, whereby we are concentrating highly on digitalization and also financial inclusion through 5G. And of course, right now we are servicing the large enterprise market. We are also servicing the small medium enterprise in terms of connectivity. Leaving that aside, we are also concentrating much with this project of fiber to the homes, making sure that different homes are getting connectivity through TIGO, under TIGO business. So I would say in a nutshell, it's not only locally that TIGO has contributed highly in terms of connectivity, but also to the landlocked countries. I think we all heard in the morning, we are trying to make Tanzania as an ICT hub for the 8 landlocked countries which were mentioned by a previous contributor, Mr. Maita. So we are not only, if we are having this gateway of bringing in the wet segment capacity, we must have a way to transit this to the neighboring countries. And we know as per our policy here in Tanzania, it's only the government that is controlling the gateway to these landlocked countries. But mentioning different shareholders of EASY, TTCL is among them, who is also our partner. And you know, in this era of connectivity, we are no longer competitors, but we are partners. So in order to work well, we have also partnered with TTCL in order to make sure we service our neighboring countries to just EASY and make sure we can transit the wet segment capacity to their respective areas through TTCL. So I would say massively, tiGO has a highest contribution to make sure that the socio-economic activities being eased and being transferred to all citizens, I would say, and all the neighboring nations, whereby we have invested highly in technology. We have made sure that we are pushing our capacity through the submarine cables, but also making sure we are working closely with the government to make sure not only its local servicing to give connectivity to our people, but also to reach these neighboring countries who are also depending on Tanzania as a hub. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Good stuff. Very interesting. And if I ask you, Leo, Engineer Leo, looking within in Tanzania, national connectivity backbones, how has it evolved in terms of reach, bandwidth, and resilience? Can we really help our neighbors? Do we have enough of ourselves?
Thank you very much. As you introduced me, my name is Engineer Leo Magomba, the Director of ICT Infrastructure for the Ministry of Information, Communication, Information Technology. First, I would like to divide the evolution of the capacity, the ICT backbone from Tanzania in two areas. First, before 2009, and then after 2009. As you all understand, before 2009, we are only relying on the microwave as a sole capacity for our backbone. Then we used to have the satellite, launching satellite, connecting from one region, especially from Dar es Salaam, we're going to the western part of the country. But after 2009, things started changing. This was after the arrival of the submarine cables, and then the government made a decision in implementing the National ICT Backbone project, which was phased into 5 phases, to be implemented in 5 phases. The first phases was done in 2009 up to 2010, then followed by the second one, and by that time, the total capacity which was constructed, it was only the 7,560 kilometers of optic fiber, with only the capacity of about 40 gigabit per second. But however, the government made another decision. That was in 2013 up to 2015, by adding another capacity to the national ICT backbone, increasing it up to almost the 200 gigabit per second. Again, the government made a decision in 2021 in expanding the capacity of the national ICT backbone from the existing 200 gig up to 800 gig. This is the project which is now under commissioning, and we expect to be alive in this month of September. But not that in March, the government made another decision again to invest more in the capacity of the national ICT backbone, expanding it from the existing to the 800 gig, which we are now just commissioning, will be adding to 2 terabit per second. But however, the national ICT backbone in Tanzania is connecting at this moment to only 37 districts, 26 regions and 37 districts. But we expect by the end of this September up to December, we'll be connecting to 99 districts. We have a total of 139 districts, which we are supposed to cover. So the target is to cover all the districts by next year. The end of the next year, we'll be covering all the 139 districts. In addition to that, we are covering all the neighboring countries. We are connecting them, the neighboring countries. We have like 9 border points. We are covering Kenya, we are covering Uganda, then we are covering Rwanda, Burundi, then we have Malawi, we have Mozambique, and Zambia. And next year, we expect also to start a project to connect to DRC. So we have all the total connection to all the neighboring countries, and we have also the enough capacity within the country also. And if you can see from the map, this was the old map. You can put the other map. Please share the other map. Yes, this is how it's going to be connected in Tanzania. So we expect to move from the old map, which we used to have on the ring network set up for the country, but we have a sort of mesh network which will cover in all areas in Tanzania, so that we can ensure that we have resilience, robustness, then affordability, and a very good network to cover the Tanzania.
Oh, thank you, Leo. Let's put a round of applause for what has been achieved so far. That is an interesting position of the current status of the connected Tanzania and the neighbors. Frank Chacha Maginga, what has been said here, can you tell us what are some emerging technologies and industry alliances that can advance international connectivity for Africa in relation to what you are doing?
Thank you. Thank you, moderator. As I was introduced, my name is Frank Maginga. I'm a manager telecom technology research for TTCL, and I have.
Sorry about that.
Sorry. I have some 10 to 11 years experience in this industry. I've seen it. I've seen the industry evolving through my 10 years experience in telecommunication and connectivity. The technology has been changing over the years, and we have a set of different technology to enable connectivity. There are some terrestrial technologies, mainly driven by advancement of fiber optic technologies, and also there are some set of wireless technologies that enable connectivity through wireless means. Okay, let's look at how fiber optic technologies has evolved, and I'll leverage the discussion which was started by Mr. Leo Magomba. We started with fiber optic technology based on 10 gig capacity, and it was 10 gig optical transport technology and supporting 400 gig capacity when we started deploying our national ICT backbone. Now we evolved to multi-terabit capacity transport network. So the optical network has enabled us to carry more bandwidth using the same, the same type of cable, but enable us to carry more capacity using advanced optical transport network. Also, we have evolvement in wireless technologies to enable last mile connectivity. From when we started in 2019, 2020, 2009, 2010, the wireless technologies were based on 3G technologies. Now we are talking about 5G, which use a set of new 5G technologies to be able to enable high-speed connectivity. So again, on the wireless part and satellite technologies, we see this more new emerging technologies on low Earth orbit satellites, which will provide some other means for connectivity, especially in the rural and hard-to-reach areas, to enable more people to be connected and to reach the government goals to connect everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maginga. I've got a question, a very specific question for you, Noah. Having worked with the TISPA, I know TISPA has been involving itself with the connectivity of the country, but as well as an enabler to other neighboring countries. What do you think is your recommendation, how the industry and the government can cooperate better for improved connectivity in Tanzania and maybe its neighboring countries?
Thank you so much, Innocent. My name is Noah Maina, and I'm currently the Secretary General of the Tanzania SP Association. This question is actually interesting in a sense that in the last 4 or 5 years, I've been involved in quite some high-level discussions with the government on quite a number of issues. One of which was, of course, the issue of right-of-way, and I would like for us to basically give a round of applause to the President for having kicked that the elephant out of the room so that we can all progress with the removal of that hindrance in terms of, fixed broadband penetration. So kudos to Mama Samia and the entire administrative state for that. And why it is important is that from day one, when we founded TISPA back in 2003, the idea was the challenge at the time was that if you were to send an email to another person within Dar es Salaam and they had a Yahoo email and you had a Yahoo email account, or maybe a Gmail, that traffic had to be routed through Europe. So we had to come up with a solution. And the solution was the emergence of the internet exchange points. Of course, we've heard of the MNOs talk today a lot about what they are doing, but there's one critical infrastructure which is very fundamental in this discussion, and that is the internet exchange points. Now, fortunately for Tanzania, across the continent, we are the only country, I think, with the most internet exchange points spread across the regions of the country, with the main one in Dar es Salaam. We have an exchange point here. We have an exchange point in Dodoma, in Arusha, in Mwanza, and in Mbeya, and we intend to build an exchange point in Mtwara. So we are the only country in the continent with an extensive footprint of internet exchange points. And these are not private businesses, which is the case in Europe and other places. Actually, the internet exchange points here, which are managed by TISPA, are 50-50 collaboration between the government and the private sector. Because TISPA's membership is comprised of ISPs majorly, with the MNOs, the counterparts, in the internet ecosystem. So all the 32 plus ISPs all interconnect and exchange traffic within Tanzania using those exchange points. And the collaboration with the government, in line with this question, started about 10 years ago, where through the vision of the former DG of TCRA, Professor Nkoma, who funded the establishment, and in fact the government provided the switch infrastructure which we used to deploy the exchange points in the regional locations. So that was not TISPA in a sense of the ISPs doing that, but it was actually funding from the government because they saw the need to basically also build these exchange points in those remote regions. Now, the ripple effect of this collaboration, which is still continuing up until today, because even in Dar es Salaam, TISPA extended an exchange point into the National Data Center. And at the National Data Center, we have entities like GovNet, we have entities like e-government agency, TRA, TPA, BOT, all collocated there. And since they are providing citizen services with the whole digitalization of government, Now, the private sector from MNOs and ISPs are able to basically interconnect and make it possible for the public to access these services within the city without having to reroute this traffic either out of the country through the subsea infrastructure or within through the satellites. So this collaboration has been actually very fruitful, and we've seen from last year, I think when I was at this summit, we were looking at traffic which was between 35 to 40 gig within the exchange point fabric. But as of today, just within 1 year, we've grown that traffic to almost 70 gigs. So there is that growth of almost 25 gigs, and this has been attributed through the installation of and attraction of content delivery networks within the exchange points. So Netflix, Google Cache, Akamai caches, the Microsoft caches are now within the country, and they are all being spread across these exchange points to enable the mandate of quality of service, because TCRA requires that operators provide better quality of service to the eyeballs, the end users. Now, with the CDNs within the country at these exchange points, the latency has been improved tremendously, because the government saw it fit that these CDNs come in and operate within our country without having to pay a license in order to improve connectivity and quality of service. That is another collaboration that we have had, going forward. But at the back of this, from the vantage point of the ecosystem with the exchange points, with the subsea infrastructure and what the MNOs are doing in the ISPs, what we are currently now pushing for is how do we actually continue this collaboration in order to see an improvement of our sector in basically contributing to the national coffer, which is the national GDP, because as you are all aware, currently we don't contribute much. I think it's now increased to about 3%, but compared to other countries in the neighboring countries, as far as Nigeria, you see that GDP from ICT sector is 7%, Kenya it's 5%. If you go to the globe, it's almost 7% in Singapore. But with these new collaborations, with this new, sort of like, discussions we're having with the government, would it be possible for us now to reach there? Now, with TARURA now gone out of the door, the ISPs are excited in the sense that we will now start building these fixed broadband, last mile fixed broadband infrastructure, metro fiber within the cities. But the exchange points which are run by TISPA will also continue to ensure that if traffic is meant to stay within Dar es Salaam, it stays there. If it's supposed to stay within Arusha, it will stay there. Only traffic from the different cities will actually be carried by the operators or the ISPs. Now, Zambia and the neighboring countries have seen how our model has worked, this collaboration between the private sector in Tanzania and the government. And they are all now interested in, perhaps also copying this model and see how it can improve their own landlocked countries. How can Burundi and Zambia and Malawi pick up the same model which we are doing and pushing within Tanzania to enable them also benefit out of this. And we even have delegations from, I think, Botswana, which is in the country. They will be coming to the exchange point to see how we've been doing this, I think sometime next week. But needless to say, our members who have been the major contributors of the UCSA fund, because it's a levy which we contribute to, now we are thinking about how do we now extend this collaboration, because UCSAF is a project run within the government. We want to make sure that people in rural areas also access content with less latency and with better quality of service. So how can we find some sort of harmonization in collaboration with USCAF to enable these content to be able to be accessible by the people in rural areas? And those are the discussions now we are continuing to have with the government out of the good collaborations that have come out of the recent developments between the private sector and the government. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noah. Yeah. Following your submission, Noah, I would like to ask all of you to respond to the next question, but also I would like to invite members of the floor if there's anything you wish to contribute on. When we look ahead, what are some emerging trends in policy that will help the industry, I mean the private sector and the government to work together for a better connectivity front? I would like all of us here to respond to this question for those who want to.
Good, one question from you.
Okay, please.
I think the exchange point is a very interesting idea, but the presumption is the sender and the receiver are within the city or within the country. What if one of them are traveling, they're not in that area? What happens?
Okay, so if it's within the country, if somebody is sending an email, say from Arusha to Dar es Salaam, that will be carried over the MNO infrastructure or the ISP. But if they are within Arusha and traveling within Arusha and sending to somebody within Arusha, we keep that traffic within Arusha. So we won't take it out of Arusha so that they have better quality of service. So if it's with Dar es Salaam, say somebody wants to, at the end, let's say even the business community within Dar es Salaam want to do their filings, end of month tax filings, and somebody is on a mobile network, traveling maybe out of the city. Interestingly enough is that all the MNOs are at the exchange point. But the other interesting thing is that for some reason, most of the MNOs at the back of your question is still centralize everything in Dar es Salaam because the billing systems are in one city and they are not spread all over the place. Which means that if somebody is trying to communicate the TRI infrastructure in Dar es Salaam, obviously, and in Mwanza, that traffic will not exchange in Mwanza. It will have to be carried to Dar es Salaam because the billing system is in Dar es Salaam, and when they buy data on their mobile to be able to do that, they can only be authenticated in Dar es Salaam. So that's the only challenge we are still currently facing. But we've been working with TCRA actually to address this. Would it be possible for the MNOs to basically decentralize billing and authentication and everything across the regions in order to grow the other exchange points and keep the traffic there? So that's a discussion which is still ongoing, and hopefully we'll have a solution for that.
Okay, now, before you return your microphone, I want you to respond to my question. Emerging trends in policy that you think the industry and the government can work more better on the connectivity issue.
Yeah, so I think for me, my take from the experience with the TARURA issue is harmonization. What happened was that one arm of government has been given an objective, in this case TARURA. It has to collect and contribute to the coffers. And then on the other side, you have TRA also have their own target. They have to collect excise duty on internet services. And then the ministry, which is our ministry of ICT, they also have a target. They need to increase penetration to 80% by a certain time, right? Now, if all these three entities can be harmonized in a sense that, because at the end of the day, the Ministry of Finance is going to decide the budget for each of these other ministries. So if the Ministry of ICTs can be empowered to increase the national GDP to a certain level through policy, right? That means that whatever collections come out of the Ministry of ICT could potentially go and fund road development in the rural areas through TARURA, without TARURA having to hinder us from deploying fiber. So I think from a policy standpoint, that is why I see we could do some improvement in terms of harmonizing the regulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You have anything to respond to that? Before Leo will be last. Anything you want to respond to this? What issues on policy can help the private sector and the government to work better on the connectivity? Anything you think might help?
Well, thank you very much for such a question. I think leaving aside the policy, we are here, we are being heard. And I think this is the best platform to advise the government and to make sure really we embrace this meaningful connectivity theme. So I believe there are various policies that are being made first by the regulator and of course by the government. But I think regardless of our policies, we should put a very welcoming and friendly, how can I say, should be policies whereby we are able to invite investors and to have better rates for our citizens. Why am I saying that and why am I bringing it here? I'm sure my friend Mr. Maita there is a bit upset. So let's say, speaking of the fiber right now, I'll speak on the landlocked perspectives. We are currently sticking on the high rates for selling backhauling to the neighboring countries. But at the same time, we also had policies on the cross-connect because of the wet segment part, of which I understand that was the TIGO hits, and we had to adapt with our current situation and environment. And through the adaptation, we had to change. You know, you cannot solve the current problems with a previous solution. You have to adapt according to how the world is enhancing. So I would say probably one of the policies that can be made or being emphasized is to put a network infrastructure mode, not only for local connectivity, but even also for international connectivity. Why am I saying that? We do have international vendors who are able to transit their capacity through our country and be able to go to these landlocked countries. But remember, all these are depending on Tanzania. We are very near to these countries, the latency is shorter, but at the same time, these investors are looking for alternative ways to reach these neighboring countries because our policies are not friendly. So if we look at it, there's a bigger gap, I would say, or a bigger revenue we might be losing because of being tight in terms of our policies to deploy this connectivity to these neighboring countries. And at the same time, this is part of us marketing ourselves, selling ourselves to the nearest countries, but at the same time, it's part of our revenue because we'll be able to transit this wet capacity to such angles. Speaking of TIGO, we are now under Action Group. We have a lot of investment on wet segment, of course, through multiple cables, including to Africa. But at the same time, we will not be able to sell all our content here in Tanzania. And because we have different channels, and thanks to our president that is opening up ways to other countries signing contracts in order to improve connectivity, we also have to enhance and pave our ways, you know, to loosen up our policies, to make sure we have friendly environments for our investors to come and invest in terms of technology, for us to grow even further. But apart from that, we also have to look on pricing. You know, we are coming from afar. Previously, we used to sell dedicated internet at $1,000, $800, and people used to buy. Right now, we are speaking of dedicated at $40, $50. That shows things have changed. I mean, the world is moving even further and faster. Okay. And we cannot compare ourselves to our neighboring countries, I mean, like Kenya, because speaking of Kenya right now, they have about 6, 7 cables, but we are still at 3, probably counting with to Africa that will be soon starting operations here in Tanzania. So we have to change, we have to adapt in terms of costing, but also we have to open up ways for even more cables to be invested here. Because mind you, the more we have further technology, the better the prices, the faster the connectivity, and even wider, and we'll be able to serve our people not only in urban areas, but also in rural areas, and also in these all landlocked countries.
Thank you very much. Chacha, thank you. Just for a minute, we have run over for 3 minutes already. Chacha, shortly, please.
Yes, I'll just touch point on engagement of the private sector and the industry on policy making process. We are reviewing the national ICT policy at the moment, and the ministry has made effort to engage all the stakeholders, including the industrial sector, I mean, in the industry and the sector, to contribute to the formulation or formulation of the new ICT policy, just to accommodate all the policy in terms of ICT framework, the ICT infrastructure and ICT services, and including the cross-cutting issues like environment, gender issues, diversity, and other human capacity development. So the key point here is to engage the private sector in the policy making so that we can accommodate all the issues that will help attract the investment from the private sector. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Leo?
Thank you very much. I'm not so many same things have been spoken by the other members, but one thing I want to say that the policy shift now from the telecom or the ICT sector. Now we have changed the shift from looking the industry as a telecom industry, but we want to look it as enabler for other socio-economic development. So even if you look on what we are now reviewing in the ICT policy, now we are shaping it as enabler of other sectors to power the digital transformation. It has been said much on the digital transformation about the digital connectivity, the digital government, and other things. So that's the shift which we are going to have it in our review the ICT policy. And the other things which have been said here on the issue of the prices and everything, I think have already been taken care. And maybe I want to assure Madam there, you talk to Maita well, everything has been taken well, and you will have a very good connectivity towards all the landlocked countries at a very good price. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's put our hands together for the panel. I'm sure we have all seen that the government of Tanzania has devoted itself in making sure it improves the services of its citizens, but also the neighboring countries. And I'm sure we've got a lot to learn from this panel. And I recommend we do more discussion during tea break if we are still going to be around here. Thank you very much, Muno.
Thanks so much, Innocent. A big round of applause, please, for this outstanding panel on Connect Tanzania, which picked up many of the themes from earlier in the afternoon and in the evening. We do have one last panel, following which we will have drinks by the pool, so don't leave yet. Our next panel is on a very important topic. We heard a lot about the digital opportunity, roadmaps, and